You have to be the lighthouse, not the lifesaver. There's too many people trying to save the other person. It doesn't work. We have to lead and shine by example. So if you physically look at a lighthouse, it is a tall structure standing firm on the ground with a beacon of light that can shine miles into the sea. That lighthouse, when someone is screaming out in the ocean, that lighthouse does not pick up its skirt and jump off the sand and jump into the ocean. It would sink right along with that. It doesn't, right? Now, a lifesaver, that will get tossed out from a boat or from land to save someone, right? So if you're the lifesaver, you're tossing yourself out into this dark water. Someone grabs onto you and they're literally pushing you down to get on top to breathe. Is that how you want to engage with others?
Welcome to How to Trust Yourself, the podcast for anyone who's done with the endless second guessing and ready to tune in to your inner guidance. I'm Anna Holtzman, and I get that feeling of trudging through life like you're wading through mud, trying to figure out which way to go. In my 20s, I spent more time asking what should I do with my life than writing about crushes or bad dates in my journal. I've tried on a lot of answers: architecture, publishing, editing reality TV for a decade, and finally landing on therapy and coaching, helping people like you connect with your purpose. But here's the thing I've learned through all those twists and turns. Trusting yourself is the key to moving forward, even when the path feels messy. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself and start listening to your gut, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back, dear listeners. Today's episode is a powerful one. I'm joined by Elysia Skye, a motivational speaker, mindfulness facilitator, intuitive life and business coach, and host of the Brilliance Method podcast. Elysia has lived many lives, from Hollywood actress to award-winning video producer to the deeply insightful coach she is today. And through every transformation, self-trust has been her guiding force. In our conversation, she shares how listening to her intuition led her through major career shifts, how trusting herself quite literally saved her life as she navigated breast cancer in her 20s, and how she now helps high-achieving entrepreneurs stay grounded through the inevitable ups and downs of building a business. This episode is full of wisdom, heart, and actionable insights on deepening your own self-trust, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Let's dive in. Elysia, it's really fun. It's very fun to see you. I like, we're just getting to know each other, but I just find you to be such a fun person. So thank you so much for being here, for taking the time to be with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Anna. It's so wonderful. I just had you on my show. I don't know what order these are going to air, but it really has been great to connect with you. And your entire topic of your show of trusting yourself is just, I'm such a fan. I've been a fan of your show, so it's really fun to be here.
It's a great match. I'm so glad that we've met each other. So I'd love if you could introduce yourself in your own words and share with our listeners what it is that you do and who you help.
Thank you. So I'm Elysia Skye. I'm an intuitive life and business coach. I use the word intuitive in my title because I am. It's a part of who I am and everything that I do. It's inherently connected to me trusting myself, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. I have my own podcast as well called the Brilliance Method, Create Your Life on Purpose. I am very passionate about us amazing, brilliant human beings understanding what it is their purpose is here on this earth, in addition to our beautiful roles that we have as mothers, wives, sisters, friends, be it whatever it is you are. We have multiple purposes, and we are here to feel them, to create them, to expand them, to share them, to make an impact. And that's my favorite thing when I get to help people do that. And one of the ways I help people do that is I have a coaching program called the Emerald Collective of the Brilliance Method. I have multiple tiers of the Brilliance Method, and right now we're focused on Emerald, which is the heart chakra, creating and expanding your life and your wealth from a place of love. And it's just been so yummy and amazing to see what these incredible souls are doing. So I get to be a part of that. And it's the coolest thing ever. And then, of course, we both have a history in production and entertainment and video. It's so funny.
So funny. I love that. I love that.
It's great. So podcasting was an easy transition with everything I'm doing with my video background, and then I still occasionally help my clients with video content, branded content, creating courses, and then I of course have big corporate clients that have me come and do content for them, or I might wind up doing mindfulness seminars and workshops for them. So it's all connected.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny how many people actually I've met doing, different versions of the type of work you and I both do who come from some kind of film and TV background, which I find fascinating. And I'm just always, it's so fun to connect on that. Um, and like naming that, I think is a great segue into like, how on earth did you get into doing what you do now? I would imagine that there was probably some kind of like personal transformation or pivotal experience that led you into this work. And I'd love to hear you share about it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And for your listeners, it was so awesome hearing your story from being in the edit bay and the headaches and like what you created in your life. So it's just so fun to talk about. And one of the things that we had shared on my show was like there needs to just be a niche for people who have been in video or entertainment or just even actors, like just to get into wellness and holistic healing and just triumph, right? So I moved to Hollywood in the year 2000, and it always reminds me of that. Remember when Conan O'Brien was doing "In the Year 2000"? I'm really dating myself here, but
I love Conan.
I moved in the year 2000 to be a movie star, to be an Oscar-winning megastar, and I got my SAG card. I booked a few things, and then I started getting really bored with some of the roles I was going out for. And I started producing my own stuff. I'm like, oh, what is this? What's a light meter? What does this do? What does this do? And I just got curious about it. I didn't go to film school, but I spent enough time on set to where I understood or I asked questions. And I learned early on, hire experts, hire smart people, hire the right people, hire what I would call a sushi knife in that category, right? A sushi knife there's so many different knives and each one has one, maybe two, but one really strong purpose as opposed to, an army knife or utility knife that's a little dull on the edge all the way around. And so many people are trying to find who they are as a sushi knife. So I knew I got to hire them if I want my products to be amazing. So I started doing short films and producing content for other people. And as it turned out, I was a sushi knife producer. I thought I was a sushi knife actor. I think I'm pretty great, but I wasn't getting booked a lot. So kind of just go where it flows, producing, acting. And in 2005, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And this is actually part of my journey that took me into fully trusting myself. So I don't know if you want to get into that part now, but
Yes,
it's
please.
how I got here. Okay.
Yes.
So it was September 2005. I found a lump on my breast. I had gotten in a big fight with my boyfriend. And being an early 20s actor, I think the word drama couldn't have been more emphasized in my life. So we got in this big fight. I was like, I'm going to take a shower to cool down because that's what you do when you're being dramatic. And in the shower, I was just, vigorously loofahing is the best way to describe it. I was just like trying to get all this anger off and using my background in energy work that I learned from my mother. She was a Reiki master and
Wow.
she was a massage therapist and hypnotherapist and just trying to release energy. And I was present enough to notice a lump as my pinky grazed my breast. Everything stopped and I intuited what was inside my body. I saw cancer and I didn't know what cancer looked like. I didn't know any of that. I had a flashback to being in health class in middle school of them passing around that silicone boob with a bean inside, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, there was a reason I was so present in that class in that moment so that future me would remember and take this very seriously. So I just knew. And that's it, Anna. And you talk a lot about that on your show when you just know, right? You just know. And I just knew I'm not a hypochondriac. I'm not the kind of person that thinks I'm sick all the time or something's wrong all the time. Relatively healthy person. 24, barely, just 24. My birthday's in August. I just turned
Wow.
24 in September. So I woke up my boyfriend and I said, I have cancer. And he said, you're crazy. Go back to sleep, which is a typical answer. And I later realized that relationship was no good for me. So don't worry, not with that guy for much longer after that. But I called my doctor. This was a Friday night. By the time I got in to see her Tuesday morning, another lump showed up in my armpit, which was concerning because that's where the lymphatics are involved. So my doctor had said to me, you're 24. Some women just have lumpy boobs, but I wasn't that woman. I never really had anything like that going on. And she said, why don't we? It's probably a cyst. Let's give it a few weeks and see if anything changes. And I'm like, well, it definitely changed between Friday and Tuesday because there's a lump here. And I really psychically saw cancer in my body. And she was a great doctor. So I understand why she was maybe not taking it as seriously as I was because, she
Yeah.
sees a lot of lumpy boobs, right? But she did say, the lymph node does worry me. The armpit one does worry me. I said, well, what do I do? And she said, well, your health insurance might not approve you to get a mammogram or a biopsy. Because this
Okay.
was since, back then, this is 2005,
Yeah.
having a pre-existing condition, like you were so screwed with health insurance. It was a shit show. And I give a lot of gratitude to the Obama administration with its positives and its negatives. Every administration has that, some more than others. But with the Obama administration, they at least did a lot of benefit in the healthcare industry, at least for people who couldn't afford it, right? So I joked later in life, it's like if you had health insurance, if you could afford health insurance, now you can't. And if you couldn't afford health insurance, now you can. Right. So that's kind of what happened. But I benefited from that at the time, being lower income in my 20s. I was a bartender trying to be an actor. Right. So she wrote me a note anyway to just get a referral because I said, I'm just going down anyway. She's like, well, I'll be your referral for you. So I went down and I paid with my Amex just in case insurance didn't cover it. I did get reimbursed eventually, but turned out I had stage 3 cancer in my right breast and in my axillary lymph nodes. So when you have cancer, when there's lymph node involvement with cancer, that's scary, right? It could travel to other parts of your body. Your lymphatic system is constantly moving, draining. It's there for a reason. So they suggested immediately double mastectomy. We don't know why you got cancer. You don't really have a
Mm.
family history of this kind of cancer. My grandmother did have, at the time, she had a lumpectomy for stage 1 cancer, but it was very different. So they said, since there's no trace of this, we don't know why you got it. Let's just take it as seriously as we can. Double mastectomy, chemo, radiation, the whole thing. And of
Wow.
course, I wanted to do a lot of Eastern treatment, but considering my age, how scary it was, how advanced it was, they said, if you don't take care of this now, you could be dead in a month.
Wow. That's quite something to hear
Yeah,
at any age.
at any age, but thank God I didn't wait a month to see if it got worse,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
listened. And here's the thing about trusting yourself. A medical professional who I respect, trust, and have gone to for years told me, you can wait. But I listened, Anna. And because I trusted myself and I listened, and it was that voice, it was that nudge, it was that
Yeah.
little push from my higher self or my angels or whatever you want to call it that said, no, take this seriously, Elysia. You saw it, you felt it, and you saw it. I'm here now to talk about it. And I have long, fun, beautiful hair that I keep playing with, and I have brand new
You
boobs.
do. You do.
I do.
Thank you so much for sharing that story with me and with listeners. And I know that there's a lot more to the story of what brought you to the work that you do now. But I really want to stop here if it's okay to ask a question that I think is going to be very important to specifically a lot of the listeners of this podcast. And when I first started, the podcast is now called How to Trust Yourself. But when I started the podcast, and for still the majority of its episodes, it was called From Chronic Pain to Passion, because where I started off in my work as a therapist and coach was in mind body healing from chronic pain. And I'm just setting this up as like some background on where many of the listeners are coming from. One of the core principles of mind-body medicine for chronic pain, at least the type that I've practiced that's helped me in my own life and my clients, is that we conceive of pain as a danger signal that the nervous system fires off when the nervous system basically is afraid, when it senses real or perceived threat. A lot of folks who are in this chronic pain recovery world are really grappling with this question. How do I discern between my intuition and fear? Does that question make sense? And I'm so interested to hear specifically your take on this.
I love that question. So there's a few answers to this. So first of all, if you are in paralyzing fear and you can't get to we'll just call it a mindful state where you can just breathe and really listen and tune in and a lot of things that you and I both teach and help with. That's when it's time to phone a friend, right? Like ask for support, ask for help, get checked, contact someone who you trust on an intuitive and personal level. Because sometimes the fear is so loud, we can't hear the truth, even though the truth is there and the truth is trying to be louder than the fear. But our soul, our spirit, our higher self, it can sometimes be loud, but the ego is quite loud, right?
Yeah.
The ego is here to keep us alive.
Yes.
And very good reason. The ego cannot survive without a body. So if we don't listen and we die, the ego is done, where our soul is eternal. So the soul or the spirit may not scream as loud as the ego sometimes. So sometimes that fear can drown out our intuition and it messes with our brain. But that being said, if you can find a moment, and we all have our own practice, whether it's the breath, whether it's grounding, whether it's pause, grab your kitty or your puppy, right? Just go be present. Go put your feet in the grass or the snow, whatever's going on, right? Wake yourself up, listen. You just need one moment, one quiet moment. And then your intuition is so loud, Anna. It's louder than the ego could ever be because it's there to love you and support you.
Oh, I got chills when you said that.
So let's go with that as a baseline. Okay. So, how do
Yeah.
we know if it's fear or if it's our intuition? So, our body language can tell us a lot. And oftentimes, fear is in our head, where our intuition is in our heart. Now, if anyone has ever asked
Yes.
you, right, like where do you feel like if I say something is the truth for you? Like right now, it's still daylight while we're recording this, right? So if I said, Anna, close your eyes, the sun is still out, maybe it's a little bit dark, but the sun is still out, like that to be true, right? And you feel it somewhere in your body. Where do you feel it in your body?
I feel it here, like in the center of my chest.
Yes. So that's your heart chakra.
Yeah.
That's right in the center, right? Our heart is more on the left side, but our heart center is right there. We truly, our intuition truly is from our center. Now, it can be confusing because we've heard the term a gut feeling, right? And
Mhm.
that term has derived more or less because we actually have brain cells in the gut, which affects our digestion when we're scared or when we think we're in fight or flight or when we're too busy or too stressed, right? We either get it all out or we hold it, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of what those gut feelings are based on. It's not necessarily our intuition. Our intuition is in the heart, truly, and that is where we manifest from. It's our guiding light right here in the center of our chest. So if you're kind of obsessing over a problem, as I sometimes do, right? If I think that I've upset someone, it's one of the biggest triggers in my entire life, and it goes back so far. But if I think I've upset someone, I will think it to death. And if you look at me while
Mhm.
I'm going over this problem, so afraid that someone might be upset with me, you'll see me have my hand on my head like this, right? Or I'll be touching my head like this.
Yeah.
So your body will start to consciously or subconsciously show you where it is you're making these choices and thoughts from. So if it's your head, it's fear. if you've paused and you've breathed and you're like, wow, I truly have something to apologize for in this situation, right? If it's given that example of I upset someone and you feel it in your heart, okay, that's where your intuition is shining through. And I heard my friend Andrea say this really clearly, Andrea Quinn, of Andrea Quinn Coaching. She said, if you have to ask, is it my head or my heart? It's your head.
I like
Right?
that.
I
I
like
like
that too.
that.
It's so easy. If I have to ask, am I in my head or not? Am I in my
Yeah.
head? Yes, you are. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really, really good one too. And truthfully, for each of us, if we can find the thing, because when we're in the moment, when we're scared, Anna, sometimes we don't remember what that grounding thing is for us. So in a moment of
Yeah.
normalcy, of a neutral state, pause and think, what can I do to calm myself, to ground myself? I have a great grounding meditation I'm happy to share with everyone, in the future or later on the call, or they can email me for it. But you can ground. Like I said, I think one of the best things is just grab an animal or a child that your friend that you have in your life, your kid or something. Just ground yourself and then go, okay, what's my truth? And sometimes it does take the loving and caring of someone else to bring us into reality.
Yeah. I love everything you said. And I was like taking notes, like kind of like pulling out what are my highlights from,
Yeah.
because I love having these conversations with um, other people who do similar work, but we're all coming at it through our own, yeah, our own trainings and all of that, but also our unique way of looking at life and experiencing life. And so we can learn so much from the language that each other describes this with.
Mm.
And what I took from how you described it was um, like fear is fast and furious, and intuition is quiet and clear and slow.
Yeah. And sometimes intuition can be quick. It can happen quickly, right? But mindfulness is slower. Mindfulness is when we slow down. It's truly the state of being present. Our brain cannot actually process two different activities at the same time other than like walking, right? We're
Yeah.
already walking and talking, we're already breathing, we're already doing this thing. So, multitasking it's an actual myth. I talk about this a lot when I teach mindfulness. So, when we are present, everything slows down, and that's when we can invite our intuition to come quickly. So that's
Yeah.
the difference there.
Yes. Yes.
Mm.
And I noticed I said intuition is quiet. And I remember you saying so it can be loud, which I totally agree with. It's like you've
Can
got to
be.
get quiet to hear the loud
Mm,
intuition.
there it is.
Yeah. So this is such a powerful story. And I know it's just one piece of the journey to like, how did you get from acting and then production to doing what you do now?
Oh, fun. Well, the short version is as I was acting and bartending and then dealing with a side effect from having breast cancer, which is lymphedema in my right arm. For those of you watching, you can see my right hand is a little bit swollen, right? Not terribly swollen. I used to have to wear a wrap and whatnot. I've had surgery, but it made it hard for me to bartend. So there's a point to this story. I needed a new gig, right? I needed something else. So I started officiating weddings. And you might
Ah,
think random. However, my grandfather and my father and my sister were all wedding officiants.
ah,
Yeah, and my
that's so
sister
touching to me. I love that.
Thank you.
It's
And my
really special work.
It is so special. And my sister was a wedding photographer. And ultimately, she wound up officiating because she was photographing and their minister officiant didn't show up. So she called my dad and said, how do I do this? Right. So he helped her get ordained online on her phone. And then she did the wedding and she really liked it. And she's like, I don't ever want to be in that situation again, though. So, Elysia, you get ordained so I can call you to come down. And then I fell in love with it. And especially
Mm.
2008 when Prop 8 got overturned and gay marriage became illegal again. I just thought it was so stupid. And then going into 2013 when gay marriage or same sex marriage was back, then my team and we did hundreds of weddings for
Wow.
free for, just, I'm a big advocate for human rights. So it became a passion of mine. So long story, slightly longer, I wound up officiating a wedding for an amazing man named Dan Levitt, who at the time was the head of learning and development for Banana Republic. And he
Mm.
married this amazing, incredible woman named Kita. And their wedding was so beautiful. And it was just the two of them, nobody else. It was just the two of them. And it was their second marriage, not to each other, but their second time being married. And Dan called me the next day and he said, Elysia, I don't remember much about my first wedding. A few moments here and there where I was probably the most present. I remember every moment of my ceremony with Kita, and I'm so grateful to you and the mindfulness
Mm.
meditation we did before we walked down the aisle and the tips you gave us in being present during the ceremony. And I want you to bring this mindfulness work to Banana Republic, and I would like you to lead a workshop. And
Wow, that's like a wild synergistic thing to happen.
I mean, I was so touched and just the greatest compliment in the world that
Oh,
someone
yeah.
remembers their wedding.
Yeah.
I did my job right, and
You brought them to that quiet place where they could hear their inner guidance, it sounds like.
yes, absolutely. And there's so many moments in our life, not just weddings. Some people don't even get married, right? But there's moments that are important, seeing our kid walk across the stage for graduation, or falling in love for the first time, or hearing a yes to a job we've always wanted, or getting our first client when we started our business. And when we're going, moving on to the next thing, distracted, trying to multitask, all that, nonsense, life goes by so fast. We're like, oh my gosh, it's already February, it's already March. It's like it goes by so fast because time speeds up when we're doing multiple things. When we're doing one thing at a time, time slows down. So, my job as a mindfulness facilitator is to help you just focus on one thing at a time, and you'll actually be more productive, more efficient, more peaceful, healthier,
Yeah.
happier. You'll make more money. So, it's a win win for everyone, even though it's counterintuitive to think, well, if I'm not doing more than one thing at once, how am I going to do all that? So I think that kind of gives it all away, right? That just sent me down a mindfulness journey, doing corporate work, speaking in front of corporations. Banana is owned by Gap Inc. Gap Inc. owns Old Navy, Athleta, and then those people are friends with other companies. So I just became a mindfulness facilitator. And being in front of management teams, human resources teams, those individuals reached out to me individually to say, hey, can you coach me one on one? And just a little bit of a fast forward, my friends and family started asking me, how'd you do all this, Elysia? How did you know you had cancer? How did you fall in love with your soulmate? How did you just create a business out of thin air? How do
Yeah.
you do it, right? Because I think we are, yes, of course, we're all special, and I am unique and wonderful. And just as you are unique and wonderful, and the person listening or watching is unique and wonderful, we all have our own unique brilliance. So I had to take a step back, and I used a whiteboard. And one of the things I learned in video production is how to produce online courses. I was working for
Yeah.
all the big universities, helping them turn their curriculums into courses and directing their professors. Before online courses were a big thing, this was like 2019. It's like, I'm going to take what I learned from this job and I'm going to filter down how did I do it into an online course so that anyone can be successful in any area of their life so that they can have their dreams fulfilled. And I called it the Brilliance Method. And now there's different variations of the Brilliance Method, specifically for sales or course creation, or very, very focused on entrepreneurship because that's what we do, right? But that's it in a nutshell, And then the clients appeared, and of course, being on other people's podcasts helped me to bring new people into my audience. And I wrote a book, and now I have my own podcast. So one thing I would say to anyone listening who's like, wow, I have this whole other life, but I want a whole new life, just tell everybody. Tell everybody what you're doing now. Tell everybody about the new life you want and let them send you people, let them present opportunities for you. And don't be shy about it, even if you're scared or you're going to worry what they're going to think. Whatever. It's your life.
What do you think are some of, because that's like very simple, actionable advice. What what are some of the barriers that come up when you share that advice with folks?
Mm, uh, Lots of barriers, right? So, number one, people think, well, everyone's going to judge me because I have a degree in this or I've always done this. And now they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm taking too big of a risk. Right. And it's like, okay, well, it's up to you how big of a risk you're going to take. I will never tell anybody, hey, quit your job, drain your savings, and go do this thing. It's like you can tip the scales. If you're working a 9 to 5, but you really want to be a published author and go on a book tour and have a podcast, right, or all the things, then great, do the podcast nights and weekends, start seeing clients nights and weekends, like do it until the weight has shifted and all the gold is on one side of the scale, or at least more than halfway. And then you leap, then you quit your job, right? Do it in a way that feels safe to you financially. And then you can counteract, oh, everyone's going to think I'm crazy. And for some people, they've been at a toxic job for so long, it's not healthy for them to stay there anymore. So it would be appropriate to cash out some 401k or some stocks or whatever and just go for it. I mean, I truly believe when we do what we feel motivated and inspired to do, the universe will conspire in our favor and bring us abundance. But we have to keep that belief the entire time. And Anna, entrepreneurship is like therapy in itself. You're going to look
Oh
at your
boy.
right? You're going to look at your
I would say it's an impetus for working on yourself because it's so triggering. Well, it is. It just
it
is
is.
inherently triggering.
It is. You can say that 100%, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna think your family's judging you. You're gonna get scared. You're gonna go broke. You're gonna do all that stuff. But
And a lot of the people you think are judging you. And then you have to work through dealing with that. You have to
yes,
figure out how do I be with that?
right, right, and
Mhm.
that you're actually inspiring them. Because remember what the
Yeah.
story I just told. I had all that fear. Oh, people are gonna judge me. I thought you wanted to be a movie star. Now you want to be a coach. It's like, well, can I do both, right? But
Yeah.
people were coming out of the woodwork going, how did you do it? Right? They were inspired. I was giving them permission to do something else, no matter how
Yeah.
old or how young they were. They might have just finished college and go, damn, I just spent $100,000 getting a degree in this, but I really want to do this. I'm like, cool, good timing. Go do it. Right? Or it's, I'm 60, I'm supposed to retire in a couple years, but I really want to do this. Great. Cash out. Let's do it. Um, Another thing that comes up quite a bit is we are, especially people who are loyal, who are generous, and who are kind. And I bet you and I attract mostly those types of people. They don't want other people to feel uncomfortable,
This is a big one. Yeah.
right? So if you say, hey, I've always done this and now I'm going to do this, and someone else is uncomfortable with it for whatever reason, maybe they're worried about you, maybe they're looking at their own life going, well,
Hmm.
what gives her permission? I want to do that. I can't do that, right?
Yeah.
We don't want other people to feel uncomfortable. And if you're playing small because you don't want someone in your life to feel uncomfortable, you're just robbing yourself of your own dreams day by day.
I'm gonna do a little like role play-ish thing now, which is
Okay.
not literally, but I'm listening to you and I'm like, yes, 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 yes. You're like the queen. I feel like you're the queen of self-trust, that you're preaching self-trust.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like I can hear voices of various listeners in my mind going, well, she sounds like she was just born with this supreme confidence or trust in herself. So, yeah, and I can see the expression on your face already communicating to this. So, like that's how it sounds to me. And so, well, that's great for her, but this is not a person whose path I can map myself onto as an example. And I'd love you to speak into the facial expression that I just saw from you.
Sure. So, first of all of our paths are incredibly unique. Even my clients who want to be coaches and podcasters and authors, I tell them, look, all the ways to get their work, find the one that works for you. Just like social media is a good example. A lot of people market on social media. Great. All the platforms work. If you hate TikTok or you hate Facebook, don't go there. Don't market there. Don't do what someone else is doing just because it worked for them. I've made a lot of money and connected with a lot of clients on Facebook. But some people are like, I hate Facebook. I want to do it on Instagram. Cool, do it on Instagram. I don't want to do any social media. Cool. Don't, right? All the ways work. You can do email marketing, you could do podcast guest, there's so many ways. So I just want to start with by saying just because I did it a certain way doesn't mean you have to do it that certain way. But I give myself permission to be seen and to be heard. And there was a lot of times in my life I did not give myself that permission. I was such a shy kid. I was so shy. I wouldn't raise my hand if I had to go pee. I remember I was in karate and I was in the back and I didn't want to raise my hand and disturb the class. And there were parents there watching us, do our thing. And I couldn't hold it anymore. And I just peed myself. And I kept doing my kicks and my punches in my own puddle of pee, hoping no one saw me. That was 5-year-old Elysia, just so terrified to
Oh,
interrupt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not confident, terrified to disturb, terrified thinking I was going to upset someone if I disrupted the class. I would hold my pee for so long. In fact, when I was going through cancer treatments and they did a scan, they brought me back in and said, "We see something on your kidneys. We're worried." I was like, "Oh fuck!" So they brought me in, and apparently I have scars on my kidneys from holding my urine, from being a shy kid. So I
That,
promise you,
yeah.
right? So if I can get here,
Yeah.
you can get here. And I am generally introverted. Like I love these one-on-one conversations, but you bring me to a party, I turn into a wallflower. I look for who do I know in the room. I use my intuition and my sensitivity to go, yes, you're cool. You seem sweet. No, thank you. And it's not based on what anyone looks like. It's just a feeling, right? So what gives me the right that everyone has the right to is truly trusting yourself and listening to your intuition in each moment. To ask yourself, am I safe? In this moment, am I safe? Yes, you are. Unless literally, which so many have dealt with recently, unless your house is burning down, right? There are very few instances where you're not actually safe in every moment. But if you can pause and say, in this moment, I am safe, then leap and the net will appear. And do it over and over and over until you've proven to yourself it always works out. And it does.
That the story that you told about like the literal holding in, like we use that as a metaphor, like holding it all in, holding all my feelings in, and this was a physical holding it in. But any kind of holding it in, whether it's holding in our pee or holding in our feelings or our truth or just like our authentic version of who we are, it has physical consequences. And the story you told of the scar tissue in your kidney is such a visceral example of that. It's
Yeah.
like we do that to be safe. We try to make ourselves small to be safe, but that version of safety has consequences that are not actually so safe, it turns out.
It does. And our bodies are more sensitive than we realize. And all of us hold
Yeah.
different stress and pain in different places in our body, as you know better than anyone. And I believe that holding it in and not expressing fear, anger, guilt, frustration, all of that is a big part of why I got breast cancer. I had
Mm,
a relatively traumatic childhood with so many terrible things that happened. And I don't say that, I don't take that for granted. A lot of people have had really horrible and much worse traumatic childhoods than I had, but it wasn't great and I didn't deal with it. I said, "Oh, I'm the adult now. So let me be the strong one." And it's often the strong ones who are so strong until they physically can't be anymore,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Debilitating pain, cancer, different issues, heart problems. So, where was I holding it all in? Right here in my heart chakra. Where did I get sick? In my heart chakra, in my breast, right? So, before I created the Emerald Collective, I had the Sapphire Collective, which is the fifth chakra, which is the throat, self expression, being heard. Your
Yeah.
voice matters. So now I infuse all of
Yeah.
that into Emerald. But for anyone who's like, well, you can do it, but that doesn't mean I can do it. I was shy. I was scared. I didn't trust myself. I didn't speak up for myself. I didn't deal with my pain. I didn't even want to tell my therapist the truth, right? I was just
And,
so,
I think a lot of people can relate to what you just said, not even
yeah,
wanting to tell a therapist, which is like, the place you're quote unquote supposed to go to tell these things to.
yeah. Well, and I came by it honestly when I was really young. My mother was hit by a car and killed. That was one of the worst things that happened. And my grandmother so lovingly said, "Let's send her to therapy because I don't know how to deal with
Mm,
this." Who knew how to deal with? What do you do when a 12-year-old loses their mother, right?
yeah.
And I would tell my therapist things that were going on in my family. And then because some of those things were safety concerns, she told my grandmother, I'm like, oh, I'm not safe to tell somebody the truth. Now there's other people in my family that are mad that I said these things are going on. And of course, it was good that it all came out. But I learned I'm not safe to tell the truth. And I don't want to not tell the truth. I am a
Yeah.
very honest person. So I'll just keep my mouth shut. You know?
S- Thank you also for sharing that story and that experience.
You're welcome.
And I'm just holding it with a lot of tenderness and love.
Thank you.
And I want to bring in the listeners here who, may not have had the same life experiences that you're describing, but I think something that everyone can relate to is having some sort of array of life experiences that teaches us, not necessarily intellectually, but on a nervous system level, that it's not safe to speak my truth, that there are consequences for speaking my truth. And so many of us, and I think probably most of us, come into adulthood with this un- unconscious. And what I mean by that is not just like it's like subconscious in my mind. No, it's like held in my nervous system. It's a reflex reaction that feels like it's not safe. And even if I think it would be nice to tell my truth, I admire people who tell their truth. I think it's a healthy, good thing to tell your truth. It's like my nervous system is feeling like that's not safe and it's holding me back. And I wonder if it might be interesting to hear like how you walk a client through that. I don't know if there are like tools, techniques, specifics that you'd want to get into or talk about it in a broader way.
That's beautiful. When first of all, it's a journey, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Hell yeah.
And many clients who reach out and connect and hear conversations like this feel so empowered and so inspired, and they're like, "You did it! I can do it! I'm ready!" I'm like, "I hear you, and you are." So let's go one moment at a time. Like, no, I'm ready to go fast. Okay, you want to go fast? I love going fast. Let's go fast until we can't. Let's go fast until something gets in the way. And when I say let's go fast, it's whatever dream they're creating, building, whatever it is they want help with, right? A lot of entrepreneurship and why I love coaching entrepreneurs and helping them with their business is the personal stuff is always what gets in the way, not the business strategy. If the business strategy is what's in the way, there's a personal thing like, well, I can't email my list every week. They're going to think I'm annoying. What's that about? Right. So it's like we're going fast and that's the thing that stops us. Right. So
Absolutely.
we want to go until we get stopped. And when we get stopped, we get to pause in the moment. In this moment, I am safe. What's this really about? So let's use the email, for example. I don't want to email people to tell them what I'm doing. Okay. What's that really about? What happens if you do? Right? Well, they're going to judge me or they're going to worry about me or they're going to think I'm crazy or they're going to it's okay, so people are going to judge you. Why does that matter? So when we ask, why does that matter? Over and over and over, and you kind of go down, go deeper, 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 right? A lot of people say it's like peeling an onion. I prefer an artichoke because in the
I
center of
like
an
that.
artichoke, there
I
is
love that.
something yummy, right?
That is so, yes. I love that metaphor. Love that.
Thank you. It's one of the things my
Yes.
husband and I love to boil artichokes and we sit and we just do artichoke night. And I didn't even know that was a thing until I married him. I'm like, oh my God, I just always ordered spinach and artichoke dip and I thought it just came from a plant. Nope, it is hard work. It is hard work to get that tasty morsel right in the middle, right? So
Yes.
we peel it down. Why does that matter? Okay, people are going to judge me. Well, why does that matter? Well, if they're judging me, I might fail, right? I might crumble. I might fail. Why does that matter? Well, if I fail, I might not be able to do the thing I love. Well, why does that matter? Because it's all I think about. It's all I want. Well, why does that matter? Because I just want to make a difference. I want to help people. Why does that matter? Right? Well, I want to make an impact. I want to know that this life meant something. Why does that matter? Ultimately, Anna, it always, always, always comes down to I just want to love and be loved.
Oh, that just like my tear ducts are welling up. And that's like a physiological thing that happens for me when that part of me that is inside that I make contact with when I get slow and quiet hears something coming from that place in someone else that they make contact with when they get slow and quiet. And it's it's so interesting how there's like this shared language between our loving parts and also between our fear parts. Like they tend to share a lot of language that can recognize and resonate off each other.
They do. And you had emailed me that you listened to my Wealth Comes from Love episode of my
Yes.
podcast.
Yes.
And when we truly recognize that everything we're doing comes from a place of love, it just makes it so much easier. And if we can talk about that on a spiritual level, I believe, and if you're, for you listening, just try this on. I believe
Yeah.
we are love. That's what we're made of, right? Stardust, all of it. It's just love. When you talk about what is God or what is the universe or what is creation, what are we? We are love. Love in its essence is perfect. There is nothing imperfect about it. So if our soul, which is who we are, just renting this adorable meat suit for hopefully 100-ish years, is here, enjoying being a human, having human experiences, getting to hang out with the ego for also 100-ish years, hopefully, we get to learn so much more about love. We are just here to learn about love. How do we do that? Through forgiveness. Always. It always comes back to, am I judging myself or am I judging someone else? And it's tricky because if you're kind and loving and loyal and all those things we said, the type of people that listen to our shows, you don't think you're judging other people. But sometimes you are because you're making assumptions about what they're thinking about you,
Very true.
right? And as entrepreneurs, we judge people on how they're going to spend their money. If we go, okay, my program might be $1,000 for the year, right? Oh, well, I don't know that they're going to pay that. I don't get to decide how somebody else spends their money. They do, just how no one else gets to decide how I spend my money. So if going back, if who we are at the core level is love, and we just want to love and be loved, then everything we create comes from love, including our money, including our health, including our relationships, all of it. And we get to practice these micro forgiveness lessons over and over every day simply through having mindful self awareness. Oh, yeah, I just totally judged that my grandmother was going to have an opinion
Yeah.
about what my book says. She gets to.
I'm going to ask kind of a silly question, which is so you help other folks, your clients, many of whom are entrepreneurs, you help them come back to this place of love, of inner trust, of that inner guidance that comes from that heart space, that heart chakra that you're talking about. And the silly question is, you as a human being who has, lots of experience with this work, lots of deep knowledge about it, because this is what your work is helping people with this. When it comes to your own experience as an entrepreneur, is it just like does all of this coming from love and self-trust, stuff just come like super easy for you, and there's like no more resistance and like any of that stuff to work through on like a day-to-day basis, or is it different from that?
It's terrifying. Right. And you know what's funny is I always tell people, you don't have to have it all figured out to help other people. You just have to be at least one step ahead of them. If you're one step ahead of someone on a mountain, you can help them up the mountain, right? So I always just try to be at least a few steps ahead. But when I say it's terrifying, I'll give you an example. Last year in 2024, I knew I wanted to pivot from the Sapphire Collective and focus on the podcast.
Yes.
That was about a 90% reduction in my income.
Wow. I just like, I'm like feeling in my body like the elevator just drop. Yep. Yeah.
Terrifying, right?
Yeah.
So when I say leap in the net will appear, I do this work too. So I got all the fears, right? What my uncle's my financial advisor. What's he going to think when he sees me selling some stocks to get through the summer? Like all the thoughts, everything I just said. What are they going to think? What are my clients going to think who loved the Sapphire program, who really wanted all of that time with me that I wasn't going to be offering now that I'm spending so much time producing a show? What's my husband going to think that I am, like no longer an equal participant in our income? Our income is going to change. That's going to change. Like all these conversations had to be had. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I had to remember in this moment, I am safe. I'm going to leap and the net will appear. I'm going to do it in a way that feels the most aligned with me being loving to myself and others. If I have to take out a little debt, I'll go into a little debt. If I have to do this, if I choose to do these things, I will. Right? I'm going to do it on my terms. But anytime we're called to stretch ourselves, fear shows up to go, wait. What if you die? What if you don't make enough? What if 10% of your income? What if you starve to death? And then the ego ceases to exist, right?
Yeah.
So because that fear popped up, when I started to get that hit, it was around May. And I really didn't make the pivot until July. It
Mm-hmm.
took me a couple of months to try it on, feel the fear, warm it up, go back, ask more questions, listen, meditate, journal, talk to my own coaches. Like I had to get ready.
Yeah.
And in one of the last videos in the Brilliance Method, I talk about my dog, Muppet. And if anyone listening has a dog or a cat, it's kind of amazing how they can just have this vertical leap that gets them onto the couch.
Oh my, I talk about this too. I love it. It's so funny. Yes, of course.
It's incredible,
Yes.
right? Like little Muppet,
Yeah.
he first he looks at where he's going to jump and then he wags his little butt. He gets ready, right? And then he goes for it. Does he always make it? He's 11 now. Not quite, but most of the time, right? But that wiggle, that butt wiggle, that was
Yeah,
me for 3 months going, "Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it?"
I love that. Oh my God, I love that. I have 3 cats, so I have seen that butt wiggle, and I've written about it in, like, my
That's awesome.
emails, and stuff because I'm like, that is like, we so often when we experience that in our own bodies, we mistake it for a problem. We're like, "Oh my God, there's too much energy in my body. Oh no, what's happening?" But it's like, it's preparation,
Yeah.
and if it's given an outlet to take action, it's wonderful. If it's just bottled up inside like the pee we're holding in, then it feels pretty awful.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's true. I meet my clients where they're at, and I have to meet myself where I'm at.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's scary. And what I know now that I didn't know when I started years ago, it always works out. If there's, and I know it's cliche, Anna, and I don't mean to be all sunshine and rainbows coming out of my butt about it, but over and over and over with everything I've ever gone through, everything you've ever gone through, the stories that I know about us, it always works out. It's always okay in the end.
I feel like this is a beautiful segue, and we're timing wise, we're coming toward the conclusion of this juicy conversation. I feel like that's a really beautiful segue into a question I love to ask, which is if there is a soapbox message that you are personally super passionate about spreading through the work that you do in all of its forms, what is the message that comes to mind in this moment?
My soapbox message is to be the lighthouse, not the lifesaver.
Ooh,
I would love to
yes,
briefly explain it.
yes.
So, this came about because I was working with a corporate client and she was doing five people's jobs and trying to fix and save this project and trying to do it all herself. And it was kind of sinking. And I said to her, you have to be the lighthouse, not the lifesaver. There's too many people in every industry trying to save it all, do it all. Too many of us in very difficult relationships, whether it's friends, family, or love partnership, trying to save the other person. It doesn't work. We have to lead and shine by example. So if you physically look at a lighthouse, it is a tall structure standing firm on the ground with a beacon of light that can shine miles into the sea. That lighthouse, when someone is screaming out in the ocean, that lighthouse does not pick up its skirt and jump off the sand and jump into the ocean. It would sink right along with that. It doesn't, right? Now, a lifesaver, this styrofoam wheel with a rope attached to it, that will get tossed out from a boat or from land to save someone, right? So if you're the lifesaver, you're tossing yourself out into this dark water. There's probably sharks. It's probably freezing. Someone grabs onto you and they're literally pushing you down to get on top to breathe. Is that how you want to engage with others? When truly, if you are a lighthouse and you stand tall and strong and shine your light and lead by example, they will find their way onto the shore and they could stand tall and strong next to you. There is enough room. We don't have to save other people.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful and beautifully articulated. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
speaking that into me and this podcast and the ears of this audience.
Thank you.
And for a listener who is like hearing this conversation, and maybe they are at the beginning of a journey of like wanting to start a business or switch careers or do some other brave, exciting thing that scares the poop out of us. And they're like inspired by things that they've heard you say. And they are also not just terrified, but overwhelmed with where do I even start? What words of encouragement would you give to the person in that place?
Start and do it scared. Do it messy.
Yes.
Give yourself permission to make something mediocre. Give yourself permission to get better over time. When we first start anything, it's not great. So if you realize you're not starting because you're scared, ask yourself, is there a little bit of perfectionism or a lot shining through here? If I'm afraid to fail and that's the reason I'm not starting, then you're never going to start. You might still be scared if you start in 10 years. Why wait 10 years? In a year from now, you'll wish you had started today. So just start, even if you're scared. And I say that with so much compassion because I know how scary it is. I've started so many different things in my life and it always works out. We learn so much about ourselves and we get better and better and better. If you ask anyone who's ever produced a podcast or written more than one book or done YouTube videos, their first video, their first draft, their first episode, like maybe not the best, right? But they started. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Once you start, you're actually practicing doing the thing. You're
So
doing the thing,
true.
but you're also getting better at it. You're practicing practice. So you're just going to keep refining. Like Anna, haven't you become so much more confident and so much more relaxed about being an
Oh my gosh.
interviewer, right?
Oh, totally. In fact, it's funny. Like a friend of mine, friend and colleague, recently asked me how much time I spend on this podcast, and I was like, honestly, none, other than the actual like conversation. Like I love it, and I don't have to think about it because it's second nature, but that took time to develop.
Yeah.
That it wasn't that way in the beginning. In the beginning, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna overthink it and all that stuff.
Right. And like,
Yeah.
let's say somebody graduates with a journalism degree, right? It doesn't mean they're going to be a great journalist on day one. Like, you can
No.
read all the books, but you don't really become great at what you do until you've put it into practice. And depending on what it is you're doing, that might be scarier. Like, if someone's life is
Totally.
in your hands, right? Like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be a surgeon's first operation, but someone is.
Someone is. Someone is.
Right?
And I love that you said just let it be messy, because that is the mantra that I need to always bring myself back to whenever I'm starting something that's unfamiliar, because I am scared, all over again every time I'm starting something new. And it's the letting it be messy that allows me to start moving out of freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, one final thought on that is if you can remember that little you, right? I talked to my 5-year-old, my shy little girl who peed on the floor, right? I've got a picture of her over here, and I
Oh.
keep her close by with her messy
Oh.
hair and her little overalls, right? I do it for her. I do it for the voice that hadn't been formed yet, or the voice that was too scared to speak out. So if you haven't ever done any inner child work or anything like that, just look up a little bit about it and love them. Love that little one that's still inside of you, that has an imagination, that is sometimes fearless and sometimes silly and sometimes terrified, and do it for them. And a 5-year-old does, oh sorry, a 5-year-old does everything pretty messy. Like, the hand-eye coordination isn't totally there yet. I was watching my niece braid her own hair today, and she's 6, and it was a mess, and it was so cute. And that's just how it is.
It
So
is.
let it be.
Messy is alive.
Ooh, I love that.
Elysia, I have so enjoyed and loved this conversation. And before we close, please share with this audience where they can find you, and also if they might want to work with you, what can they reach out for? Let us know.
Thank you. So ElysiaSkye.com is the hub of all my things. And I think the Brilliance Method sometimes points to it, but ElysiaSkye, there's an E at the end of Skye. My Instagram handle, all my social handles, even LinkedIn, it's all Elysia Skye. So you can pretty much find me everywhere. I would love for you to follow, subscribe, love my podcast as much as I love it. And of course, go listen to Anna's episode too. And the Brilliance Method. I have incredible courses. I coach live every week. And if you want to work with me one on one, there's an application process, but I do work with some people one on one. And if you work at an organization, or you have your own organization and you'd love me to come and speak on mindfulness or listening to your intuition or trusting yourself, then I would be honored to do that. So just connect with me through my website and just fill out the form and let me know. Let me know what it is you desire. And if I can help, I will. If not, I will refer you to someone who can.
Fantastic. And we'll put those all in the show notes so listeners can find them easily. Elysia, such a pleasure to connect with you again. Thank you for being here, and hope to talk to you soon.
You're welcome. This was great. Thank you, Anna, for all that you do.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Hit that follow button so you don't miss a thing, and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find this show, and honestly, it makes my day. And if you're looking for more ways to trust yourself and start listening to that gut instinct of yours, come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, trust yourself. You've got this.